And we are back with another episode of Liam Picks Fights. Today, we are coming at you for the UFC 265 Derrick Lewis versus Cyril Gane fight card. I'm breaking it down a little bit from a betting perspective with my man, Phoenix underscore MMA. This is a good guy in the space. He's a friend of mine. He is an up-and-comer in this space. And we are going to be talking to you about the weigh-ins, what we saw at the weigh-ins, as well as the betting action that we're taking on this card and where we're excited to lay down some of our funds. So without further ado, we will bring in the man of the hour, Phoenix MMA. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, boss. Thanks for having me on. Excited to break down the fights with you. It's always a good time.
Absolutely, man. Should be an absolute pleasure. So without further ado, I'll ask you this. What kind of action are you most excited about on this card? Do you have a biggest bet on the card?
I actually do not. I have a lot of medium, smaller size bets. Nothing really like jumped off the page for like a bigger bet for me. But I've got quite a decent amount of action. I think I'm at 7 bets right now, looking at potentially one more that I'm probably going to pull the trigger. Most of it is on the main card, actually. So, it's a banger of a main card mixed with a lot of nerves with the bets. Should be fun, but got some undercard action as well. But overall, just excited. I think it's a really, really good card.
Nice, man. And would these be money line type bets, or are you looking at the prop markets? How did you decide to attack this card?
I have got 3 money line plays and 4 prop bets, and the other one I'm probably going to add is also a prop bet. So, bit of both.
Very nice. All right, so where do you want to start? What fight looks the most appetizing to you?
One of the fights that I'll start on the undercard. I'll start with the first fight of the night. Actually, I got some action on that one. The Munoz and Simmons fight.
Me too.
Really okay.
Yes,
I actually locked in today. Actually, I taped it today. It was the last one I got to, and I was really thinking going into the tape that I was going to bet Johnny Munoz, especially inside the distance. But I actually am taking it a little bit safer. I played the fight doesn't go at -130 for a unit and a half. I just think that's a really, really good spot because Johnny Munoz is a guy that, he's a finisher, right? He's got an 80% finish rate. And, he's a very good submission grappler. He goes for ground and pound as well. So I think he's definitely allowed to finish this fight against a guy against Simmons who's not really UFC caliber. I don't think so. I mean, he's all right, but he's nothing really special. And I think Munoz should definitely have his way with him. And then, but Simmons is also, he's a finisher as well. I think he has a 72% finish rate. And he hits kind of hard. It looks like I can't really gauge his power because he's knocking out like a bunch of bums, but he's got decent submissions as well. It looks like as well, some amateur submission wins as well. So I feel at -130, it's a pretty good price for the doesn't go. I do think largely that Munoz is going to be the one that covers that inside that the doesn't go to decision. As I think he's just a much better fighter. And I kind of like that spot quite a bunch. I thought that would be much wider, closer to like -186, -200, honestly, because I just feel both these guys finish 72 and 80% of their fights. Simmons has been finished in all of his losses. He doesn't look the most durable, and he also doesn't look like he has the best cardio. So I definitely think that Munoz gets like a second or third round finish at a pretty decently sized clip. And yeah, I really like that spot.
Man, I find it so funny because people are going to think that we, talk back and forth and kind of, might have coalesced on this bet. But actually, I came to that bet myself. I got it at a slightly worse price than you. I paid -140, and I went 1.2 units on that. The fight doesn't go to decision. And for a lot of the same reasons that you mentioned, man, just we got 2 proven finishers here. And, I think that in all likelihood, the finishing upside for what's the gentleman's name? Simmons. Simmons' finishing upside is the hands. He's got power in his hands. That seems to be one of the things that distinguish him on his, local scene, because he was kind of, a little bit suspect in the chin, kind of got hurt and rocked even in some fights that he won. And then obviously has been brutally finished now by Giga. And also that knee where, he kind of gets choked right after he's hit with the knee, and they ruled it a knockout due to the knee, but it could have just as easily been ruled a submission, club and sub. And, I think we can easily see something like that again. Want to point out that on my stream yesterday, AJ and Lucrative were both pretty high on Munoz. in that, minus 250-ish range. Now he's been bet up to minus 300. I think the money line value has been extracted certainly for Munoz at this point, but I do think Munoz inside the distance at plus money is probably not a bad spot. But I think it's a little smarter to cover all your bases here, and to cover that just on an off chance that Jamie Simmons is able to stuff some of these takedowns, keep it on the feet. I think that in all likelihood, Munoz would still be better on the feet, but I do think that power could always translate and could make a difference. So that's how I view this fight. We got our man Gordo in the chat. Munoz inside the distance, the way to go. And it's sitting at plus money right now. I just want to highlight these odds from betonline.ag. Excited to announce they're going to be a presenting sponsor of the show moving forward. But we're going to refer to their odds for the sake of the show. And we've got minus 300 on the money line for Johnny Munoz Jr. We've got plus 250 on the money line for Jamie Simmons. And we also have Johnny Munoz Jr. inside the distance, plus 115. That's where Gordo says he's excited to look. And you could still get that minus 140 price that I got for the fight doesn't go the distance. I would be a little surprised if that doesn't close minus 165 or greater, because I think people, when they dig a little bit deeper into that spot, are going to see the finishing potential on both sides. Hopefully we don't see a tentative performance here because we have one guy coming off a knockout loss in Jamie Simmons, but I think that his win condition is predicated on him coming forward. I think that we have a massive discrepancy on the ground here in this contest, a black belt versus a blue belt. And so this could go from bad to worse quick for Jamie Simmons if the fight hits the mat. So I think there's a lot of finishing upside both ways. I think that's a good read by you, Phoenix. And I'm glad that we ended up on the same side of a bet here. And hopefully we could both cash that ticket. It is my biggest play of the card as of now, 1.2 units on that fight not to go the distance. So we're going to, get that boom or bust result early on in the night. And I'm looking forward to that fight, man. I think it should be good fun. And I'm betting on the violence there. I think there's a good chance that we see some violence.
Yeah, definitely. Especially with like you said, with the discrepancy on the ground, like the way Munoz transitions on the ground too is just very, very solid. Like I've seen him like transition into mount easily, fluidly, even with his submissions too. The way he sets them up, like he's a very good submission grappler, I think. But yeah, like you said, I think the money lines, the value's been extracted. It's a bit too much now. But yeah, I like the violence in the spot. Plus, first fight back with the fans, I like it. I like the violence.
Absolutely, my man. Is there anything else on the prelims that is catching your eye? I see that Manel Cap is starting to come in just a little bit. He was minus 200. He's now sitting at minus 193. I'm seeing the Gato Leonardo fight is now sitting at a honest pick on minus 110 either way. Anything catching your eye the rest of the way on the prelims?
Yeah, I actually got 2 plays for the prelims. One was actually with the Manel Cap fight. I mean, I really like the doesn't go in that fight or the under, just because I know it's flyweight, but Ode Osborne's a guy who hasn't been out of the first round in 7 or so fights, I think, and just his style is so explosive. Like he's constantly he's got some decent power. It looks like, and he's coming down, so maybe that power translates. But also off his back, he'll throw up subs. I think both guys can finish the fight by submission or by knockout. And like a lot of people have to remember that Manel Cap, prior to the UFC, I mean, 14 out of his 15 wins were by finish. Like this guy has definitely got some power, and he's a finisher. And I think that, especially in this spot, his back's against the wall. The way he's losing these fights is he's being a little bit too tentative. I think he goes out there much more aggressive, makes this fight like a war, because Osborne's not a guy that's going to back down from a war. Also, just the fact that Osborne hasn't been out of the first round in so long. I know you sent me one of his fights that did go to decision. And, he looked very shaky going into those later rounds, cardio-wise, making a lot of mistakes that I think a guy like Cap can capitalize on. So at evens, I think it's like minus 105 or something, minus 110 on the place that I'm looking at. I think that could be a decent spot, considering both guys, are finishers. Both guys, I would be a little bit concerned about the durability of Cap. But, Osborne's a guy that, he'll bring it to you, man. He'll bring the fight to you. He'll try to hit you with some big shots. So At evens, I think it's a decent spot, taking advantage of some of the recency bias. Maybe that Manel cap goes to decisions. But I do think he is a finisher, and I do think that he probably finishes Osborne in this spot. So haven't pulled the trigger yet on that one officially, but think I'm going to.
Understood. And I could tell you, I was kind of leaning towards a cap inside the distance play, and that was when it was sitting at plus 190. The line had moved to plus 170 when I actually went to sit down and play it, and it's currently sitting at plus 170. So I have not gotten involved, but I could definitely see the finishing upside there. BetOnline.ag is hanging a fight, doesn't go the distance at minus 130. So not getting a plus money look, but what do they have on offer for the under 2.5? Under 2.5 is minus 110. So, yeah, kind of paying a pick 'em price now. Got to bite a little bit of chalk on betonline.ag if you want to get involved. But, yeah, I think that could be a decent spot, man. I think Manel Cap has some pretty decent finishing upside here for all the reasons you mentioned. Is there another bet that you have on the prelims, or are you looking to move to that main card?
There is actually one more that I got. It's a bit of a...
Oh, actually, let me just bring in Gordon. I see that he left in the chat. What's worse, Cap's fight IQ or O'Day's level of competition? And that is a good question.
That is a good question.
Neither are very good. But hopefully we see improvements. Obviously, we'll be getting a step up in competition for Cap in this fight. So we get to see him tested against a better level of competition. And, a lot of people are banking on Manel Cap to have a better fight IQ, I think, in this spot. And O'Day Osborne might give him a lot of opportunities. So should be a good spot. What else are you looking at, Phoenix?
I have got one that's a little bit controversial. I've seen I think it is the side here, but I know some people are probably scared to bet it. I mean, I like Karolina Kowalkiewicz here. Actually, like a decent amount. I mean, I capture relatively high. I think I'm minus 180 here. And the reason being is just, if you look, I just want to point out the numbers before I get into the breakdown. Just based on the numbers alone, I mean, Karolina lands 5.2 significant strikes per 15 minutes compared to Jessica Penn's 2.4. So she's significantly outvoluing her at a higher clip. As well as, and I think that's very important to note. And the other stat that I wanted to mention was Karolina's takedown defense sitting at 75%. And prior to the Yan Xiaonan fight, I think it was in one of her second last UFC fight or her third last UFC fight. She was sitting at like an 88% takedown defense, having the best takedown defense in the division. So I think that's also important to note. It's just for me in this spot that if Karolina, I get the question marks, right? Like the fact that she stepped away from the sport, the fact that, people don't think her mind's in it. But if Karolina has even just a little bit left in the tank, I think that she's definitely the better fighter here. And I think this is a good stylistic matchup for her. I mean, she's definitely the better striker. I mean, she's not the greatest striker in the world, but this is Jessica Penn that we're talking about. It's not like Karolina's coming back and fighting against, an up-and-comer that's not very good. It's Jessica Penn, who's just came off a 4-year layoff as well. And if she doesn't get the nod against Lupi Godinez, I mean, hasn't won a fight in 7 years, right? So I think that this is a winnable fight for Karolina. I think that at this price, she could look like a hindsight much bigger favorite than Jessica Penn. And Jessica Penne, and I just don't think Jessica Penne really. I mean, the way she's going to win this fight is kind of make it ugly, try to get into the clinch and like try to take her back. But I mean, Karolina's very good in the clinch. I mean, like when just going back to the Rose fight, I know it was a while ago, but she's got some good knees, some good elbows in the clinch. So I think that if she's got anything left in the tank here, that she should definitely win this fight. And again, if this fight was taking place a couple of years ago, I mean, she's a much bigger favorite. And I'm looking at her losses too. Like she's fighting like her last loss against Yan Xiaonan, Alexa Grasso, Michelle Watterson. I mean, Yan Xiaonan and Alexa Grasso are two of the most technical, high volume strikers in the female divisions, in the flyweight division, strawweight division. So Jessica Penne is not going to offer any of that at all. Like she's really a pretty poor striker overall. So again, just on the feet, I think Karolina's got her covered on volume, on accuracy, being busier. And I just think that she can stuff the takedowns. I mean, her takedown defense is very solid. And before the Yan Xiaonan fight, where she's basically just got like thrown around in there, completely outstrengthed, her takedown defense was in the 80%, which is very, very solid. And I just don't think that Jessica Penne really has much to offer. It's just I get the uncertainties with Carolina, but if Carolina was facing like an up and comer, someone that was, not a good fighter, but on the rise, so potential to make improvements, I would be a bit more skeptical. But she's basically facing someone who just took a 4-year layoff herself and who hasn't been that active and who isn't very good whatsoever, who clearly didn't make any improvements in those 4 years from what I saw in the fight against Lupita Godinez. So I think this is a good spot for Carolina. I think hindsight, she could look like a much bigger favorite. If she's completely gone, then she's completely gone. I'll live with it. But stylistically, I think this is a really good matchup for her to come back and win. So yeah, I got 1.5 units on Carolina at -125, and I think it could be hindsight a really sharp angle. But yeah, maybe that's just me. But I get the question marks on people being hesitant to bet this fight.
Yeah, I was just hesitant to bet this fight at all, not even the Carolina side in particular, just because I thought that the Penne result, I might have even had a small wager on Penne in that fight. And that would have, if I did, I honestly just can't remember. If I did, though, I got lucky because she did not win that fight. She got thrown all over the place. But I do think that, number one, here's the reasons I was really skeptical about betting this fight. I was skeptical about betting it because we've got Texas judges. We've got a fight that could be really ugly and weird looking and hard to interpret. And that for me was enough at evens to stay away. If I was getting plus money, I would be somewhat interested, but not going to back Penne at plus money in this spot. So that's why I ended up staying away. But I do get the angle that, should this be a striking-based affair, I think it's going to be obvious volume edge for Carolina. But I do think it's a little worrisome. I don't know that she's looked quite the same since she got knocked out. And it's been a few years, so maybe that refreshes her. Maybe that is a positive thing. I think it certainly could be. But I think that that Godinez chick could probably – knock out Carolina these days too. So I don't know that for sure, but I just think based on what we've seen, if not knockout, I mean, she's obviously very, very tough. I don't want to belittle her either. Like maybe just, same kind of awkward looking out strength thrower around type deal. Like you mentioned against Yan Xiaonan, kind of made me overrate Yan Xiaonan just a little bit, if I'm honest with you, but it seems like a fight that could go, to a greasy decision. That's why I ended up staying away. But I think if you're getting the volume edge in a close decision, that should normally sway it your way. And I do think that her takedown defense will likely be able to hold up. I don't think she's just going to get taken down easily each time or anything like that. But Penne has a really weird way of forcing the clinch in every fight that she's in. And she does like an overhook hold around the arm to prevent people from pulling out of the clinch. And it doesn't always leave her in a defensively sound position, but she wants to stay in the clinch, and she does a pretty good job holding on to it. So I think it should be a good opportunity for you. I wish you the very best of luck, but that is a fight that I ended up staying off of and a fight that I will not be taking action on before fight time. But is there anything else that you had from the prelims? I do have one other piece of action from the prelims.
I do not. But just before you get onto that, just the one more thing I wanted to mention about the Carolina fight. The way I see it is all the things that we worry about with Carolina, I just don't feel like Penne really has the answer for that, right? Like, I just think that she doesn't have the physicality to deal with Carolina. I mean, Carolina is not the most physical, but neither is Penne. I mean, she just got thrown around by Godinez in the last fight. Wrestling, I just don't think Penne's wrestling is that good either. Like, again, she's awkward in the way she forces things, but I think in the clinch, I think Carolina is much better in the clinch. I mean, her knees and her elbows are pretty solid, so I don't really see Penne having much success getting her down. And again, it's just the volume edge, the optics. I know both girls like to walk forward, but I think Carolina is the girl that's probably going to walk forward. So optically, that's going to look better for her as well. And just metrics wise, Carolina is so much better. So I think again at -125, I think hindsight it could look much bigger. If she's completely gone or Penne makes it a bit greasy, then I'll take it. But I just think the upside of this bet could turn out pretty solid. But we'll see what happens.
Good luck to you, my man. Wishing you the best. I got 0.52 units on under 2.5 rounds for Vince Morales and Draco Rodriguez. And that for me was another violent spot that I wanted to target just because I think that on the Draco Rodriguez side, we got 2 knockout losses. We've got, I think, 6 out of 7 wins by finish. So he's finishing and he's getting finished. I think he's got a pretty suspect chin, but I think he might have the grappling upside in this matchup. Vince Morales has pretty decent takedown defense, but when he gets taken down, he's shown questionable decision making on the ground. Got submitted by Domingo Pilarte without much resistance in the second round of their fight. So I think that this is a fight where both guys have finishing potential and the rate of exchanges should be very high. Ayman Zahabi, not known for being a power puncher, was able to put out Draco Rodriguez, and that was a really devastating looking knockout. Very awkward fall. All of it looked visually bad, and that's not the first time Draco's been knocked out. Now, granted, I wasn't able to watch the other fight where he was knocked out, but he was recorded another knockout loss. And he's got a lot of fights under his belt. You know, he's got some amateur experience, but hasn't really compiled much of a impressive pro resume. And he's got a lot of hype behind him still. So I thought that that was an interesting spot to target. I considered the Morales money line, but I haven't been able to get plus money on him yet. If I'm able to do that, I might get involved. Vince Morales is currently sitting at -110 pick'em on either side. And, you know, I like Morales in this spot, but I do think Draco Rodriguez has some submission potential. And, you know, if the rate of exchanges is high, if there's one thing I could credit his striking, he's got pretty decent leg kicks. I think, you know, we've seen Vince Morales not have a really good answer to leg kicks. Multiple fights over now, not just the Gutierrez fight, where that's kind of his specialty, but his fight before that, I'm blanking on the gentleman's name, but he got his legs kicked off out from underneath him in that fight, which I thought he should have won, admittedly, but still, you know, he was kind of losing his balance, and those are the kind of things that could sway judges that don't know any better. You know, he was toughing it out, landing probably the better, cleaner boxing combinations, but he was getting the legs kicked off him by somebody. And, you know, that could happen again in this spot. And we've seen him fold under that kind of pressure. So I like the under 2.5 rounds here. I got it at +115, limited my exposure, only 0.52 units, but I like this spot. I think it's got a pretty decent chance. And whenever I'm going to bet the under, I'm looking for high rate of exchanges. I'm looking for 2 people with finishing upside. I think I have that in this spot. So ready to take this play anytime I can get it. And, you know, I'm just expecting that people are going to be coming hard in these fights. I think that the crowd is going to bring out the best in some of these fighters. And especially at the lower levels, I think we're more prone to seeing guys just run into early finishes. So I'm hoping that we have hands down, chins up, let them fly. That's what I'm hoping for here. Violence galore.
Yeah, it's a solid spot. I was looking at it myself, actually. I think that the finishing upside is there for both guys. So best of luck on that one for you.
Appreciate that, my man. Do you want to move along to the main card? We may have lost Phoenix here for can you hear me, buddy?
Oh, yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, great. No problem. Did you want to move along to the main card? What's your next piece of action?
Yeah, I'm on the main card. I got bets on actually 4 of the 5 main card fights. So
nice.
Yeah.
Drop the hammer. What's the first one?
The first one is the Angela Hill Tisha Torres fight. Basically, just to play on line value. So this is a fight where I see that it goes to the scorecards probably 85-90% of the time. I mean, Tisha Torres isn't really getting finished by anybody, and she's fought very good strikers recently. And Angela Hill's super durable as well, never been finished. So I definitely think this fight probably goes to decision. And looking at the money lines, Tisha Torres is like the -140 favorite, Angela Hill +110 or something like that. Makes sense to me. I think Tisha should be slightly favored. I think it's maybe a bit wide, but I do think Tisha should be slightly favored. But the decision lines is what really confuses me. I mean, Tisha Torres' decision line is like +110, +115, but Angela Hill's is like +200, which I really, really don't understand. I mean, this fight probably goes to decision. It's probably a close decision. It's probably a split decision. I mean, especially with the judges, it could really go either way. I don't think any one of these ladies is going to clear cut win the fight. for the Texas judges. So I definitely think that it could go either way. And I think Angela Hill plus 200 decision's a bit crazy. I think it's a really I dropped half a unit on that just based on line value alone. Because who knows with these judges? I mean, these girls are going to fight to a close fight. Angela Hill fights close fight. Has only her recent losses were both close fights that didn't go her way. So maybe she's due for one on her side this time. But I do think Tisha should be the slight favorite just because, she could potentially mix in the takedowns, but I just don't think she's going to have that much success. I mean, her takedown accuracy is only 15%. She's not really that good of a wrestler, and Angela Hill has significantly improved her defensive grappling. So maybe a takedown in there, but I do think that Angela Hill probably can get back to her feet. I mean, she's not the greatest off her back, but I don't think she's going to want to be able just accept bottom position at any times in this fight. So I think she'll get back up. And again, I think it'll be a close fight, close numbers, could really go either way. So I'll take a plus 200 on a split decision all day. So I like that spot for some line value for me personally.
Nice, man. And I could tell you, Lucrative MMA called that the most inaccurate betting line on the whole card. Angela Hill by decision at plus 200. And, betonline.ag, which he called one of the sharpest books in the space, is also listing her at plus 135 by points. So they are on to the Angela Hill love. They have addressed that. And Tisha by points is currently plus 120. So I think either way, if you want to target this fight, probably makes sense to back these girls, from that by decision perspective. Although I will tell you this, if you're on Angela Hill right now, it makes way more sense to back Angela Hill money line plus 122 as compared to plus 135. Line shop it a little bit. If you could find a better number, that might make sense for you. But I could tell you that if it's plus 122 for money line and plus 135 for her to win by decision, I would take the plus 122 because that covers, another additional 5%, let's say, of the outcomes. And that still comports with Phoenix breakdown. So just keep that in mind, guys. You don't want to overexpose yourself on this fight, and you don't want to, go for value when you don't have to. If they're offering you virtually the same price on the money line, just take the money line look and cover more outcomes. We've seen disqualifications. We've seen, point deductions. We've seen split decisions, majority decisions. We've seen all sorts of crazy results this year and every other year. So you just got to keep that in mind when we're betting on these fights, especially in Texas. I think we look for the value spots here. Shout out to Payne Fight Predictions. Always dropping some love in that comment section. Appreciate you. Salutations to you, Payne. Thank you for stopping by, checking out the stream, my man. Phoenix, what else do you got for the people?
Yeah, so I do have a bet on the Chiesa Luque fight. I know we were kind of talking about it before, and I'm against it here. I like Chiesa here. I like Chiesa. I got him in at plus 110 for a 1.5 units, and reason being is just that, again, this is a very binary fight in the sense that, if it stays on the feet, Luque is probably gonna destroy him, and if it goes to the ground and Chiesa can have top control, that he probably wins the fight as well. The reason that I'm on Chiesa is, looking back through tape, right? Obviously, the first thing you want to do when you're taping a Chiesa opponent is, can they stop takedowns? Do they have a good get up game? Things like that. And Vicente Luque, I mean, nothing to me on tape suggests that, he's not going to get taken down and that he's going to get right back up to his feet. He's never really fought. I mean, these guys are kind of like the same in the sense that they've never really fought a guy like their opponent. I mean, Chiesa, Luque's never faced like a straight out grappler that's going to go out in there and try to grapple him and take him down. And I don't think Chiesa's faced someone with the style of Luque. So, but for me personally, I mean, I watched all the fights Luque got taken down, even his very first fight against Michael Graves. I mean, albeit that's his first UFC fight tons of time ago. I don't really put too much stock into that whatsoever. The Leon Edwards fight, he stuffed a decent amount of takedowns. His get up game looked all right, but this guy got taken down by Derrick Krantz, plus 750 underdog, had his back taken for a good amount of time before turning around and finishing him, which is an automatic red flag to me. He got taken down by Nico Price and Randy Brown as well, not really grapplers at all, in exact ways. And the ways they took him down are exact ways that Michael Chiesa likes to take you down. I mean, Randy Brown got him in a body lock trip. I mean, Chiesa was doing that to Magny all day. So I think Michael Chiesa knows that Vicente Luque is super dangerous on the feet, and he's not really going to want to waste much time standing with him. So I think he's going to constantly be grappling him. And from what I've seen, I mean, Luque has a decent takedown defense, decent get-up game, but nothing on tape suggests to me that Vicente Luque is not going to get taken down by Michael Chiesa and is going to get back up at ease against Michael Chiesa. Now, albeit Luque by submission is actually a pretty decent spot. I was considering maybe like sprinkling that on because I do think that Luque has a very underestimated submission grappling game. I think he's got very good submissions. I think he could definitely catch Chiesa, considering Chiesa's been subbed in 75% of his losses. But for me personally, the ways that Vicente Luque is getting taken down kind of mimics exactly how Michael Chiesa takes you down. I think these body lock trips that Randy Brown got on him, I think Nico Price got him down as well. And, Vicente Luque off of his back, while he does have a decent get-up game and a decent submission game, I've seen moments on the tape that he just kind of like accepts the position, right? For even I know that he does eventually get back up, but there is times where he kind of like composes himself and doesn't immediately scramble back to his feet. And I think Michael Chiesa is a guy that has very decent top control, good positional awareness, good transitions overall. So, I think I capped Chiesa around 60% minus 150. Hence the 1.5 unit bet. And again, I think on the feet, Vicente is probably going to destroy him, albeit I do think Chiesa's striking is looking a little bit better. But again, Luque is the much better striker, much more power in the hands. So it's a very binary fight, but I just think that Chiesa, he's an intelligent guy. He's not going to want to stand on the feet with Vicente Luque, and he's going to try to go for the takedowns repeatedly. And I do think that he's going to get him down multiple times in this fight. And have some good top control time while he's there. But yeah, for me, the main thing is just on tape. I've seen Vicente Luque being taken down by ways that Chiesa likes to take you down against much inferior grapplers. And Michael Chiesa's landed multiple takedowns in all of his fights at welterweight so far. So I don't really see why Michael Chiesa is not going to take down Luque. Luque hasn't really faced a grappler, so you can't really say that Luque is going to stuff the takedowns confidently. But maybe that's just me. On the feet again. If Chiesa can't get the takedowns, the bet's going to look shocking. But I think Chiesa is going to have some success with the takedowns, have some good top time, avoid the submission. As I said, I think he has good positional awareness. And yeah, that's my take on that fight. I think that's going to be a very good fight, though. I'm very excited for that fight.
Oh, I'm fired up for that fight. And I just want to make this counterpoint that I think people might have been missing just a little bit from this week. And granted, I see a lot of the points you're making. I think that you're making a lot of sense. And man, can I just tell you, everybody is on Michael Chiesa this week, I feel like, in the Sharp community as well. So, all credit and respect to you. I think that that's a read a lot of people are making. But I just want to read this out for whatever it's worth. His opponents at welterweight have been Carlos Condit, Diego Sanchez, Rafael dos Anjos, Neil Magny. And what I think is like a common thread between those guys is that they're eminently wrestle and grappleable. And, you see RDA, allergic to pressure wrestlers, especially at welterweight. We see, Neil Magny, who has been out-wrestled and out-grappled by RDA. RDA likes to be the more proficient wrestler and grappler, and he was in that matchup. Neil Magny is just like he likes to be in the clinch, standing. He does not like to be on the ground unless he's on top, and he was getting dominated in those fights as he has, by a lot of guys in top grappling situations. Diego Sanchez, granted a very good grappler, very good scrambler in his day, kind of past his prime by the time Michael Chiesa gets a hold of him. And the UFC was basically giving him that matchup because they know that, Michael Chiesa is one of the few guys in the UFC who reliably won't throw punches. I think that they were trying to avoid getting Diego Sanchez more damage with that fight. And then Carlos Condit, had a pretty realistic submission opportunity of his own when he was fighting against Michael Chiesa. So I think that Chiesa at welterweight, obviously looks better, looks healthier. He looks like he's filled out. He looks like a legitimate welterweight in terms of his size. However, I think that he hasn't really had an opportunity to grapple many welterweights of his size. And I do think Leon Edwards is a pretty big welterweight. I think that some of these guys, Michael Graves, big, strong guy with a lot of wrestling upside, just doesn't fight anymore, so people don't really know who he is. But Michael Graves was a pretty solid prospect at the time, and I just don't think that Vicente Luque gets enough credit for the tough fights that he's had in the UFC. Granted, many of them are against strikers, but many of them are also against balanced guys. Even the likes of Bilal Muhammad, known for what? Pressure, durability, and gets smoked in the first round. I think that there's going to be a lot of betting action that comes the way of Michael Chiesa this week. I think that the public is on him. It's moved from an underdog price. I think Vicente opened -160, and now it's a straight pick 'em with Michael Chiesa maybe -111 versus -108 for Vicente Luque. I think it might have been a complete switch at this point. We got Payne in the comments saying, I'm on a lone island with Luque. Man, I don't know that you're alone, brother. I think I'm with you. But I do think this is such a close fight, man. I think that this is a 55-45 fight. This is a 52-48 fight. You know what I'm talking about? It's a very close one. And I think it really depends on, how successful Michael Chiesa is. I think he's had guys who are willing to engage him in the clinch. I think Vicente Luque, for all his other faults, he can sometimes be a little lackadaisical in his wrestling and his grappling, but man, he's got tools that punish people when they want to wrestle and grapple. He's got devastating knees, both intercepting and from the clinch. And I think that he can make Michael Chiesa pay potentially with some of those shots. And I think he could also, he's very fast and deceptive with that lead hook. What stood out to me was, Chiesa probably spent 3-4 minutes, maybe 4 is an exaggeration, maybe 2.5 to 3 minutes at range with Magny before he engaged him in the first round. He was trying to gauge out the distance. He was trying to find his range. He was trying to find a way in. And I think that 2 to 3 minutes at range with Vicente Luque, even if you're as durable as Bilal Muhammad, could be enough for him to catch you. And I think Payne makes a very good point. Don't forget about the leg kicks, which he does do very well. He kicks the leg very hard. So, man, I think that this is a heck of a fight. I think there's a reason these guys are getting the featured, showcase. I really am impressed by both of these guys. Chiesa surprised me, man. I didn't think that he was going to have this kind of run at welterweight, and he's been putting a string of good wins together. Granted, I think that this is his real test. I think this is a big step up in competition for him. And I think that, if Chiesa is going to do it, it's got to be now. He's getting a little bit older. I think he's 33 or so. But it's time to move. And I think he's really trying to make a move. I think he thinks this is the most winnable fight for him in the top 10. And so we're going to find out if he's right or wrong. Man, I think that those front chokes are the biggest liability and concern for Michael Chiesa in this spot. I think if he tires out at all in that third round, Vicente could catch him on the way in. But if he can keep 15 minutes of cardio, disciplined approach, he can win this fight with 24 significant strikes like he's done before. So, I think it's going to be an interesting clash of styles. I hope that my man Vicente Luque can at least put on a good showing. I think he's done such credible work in the UFC and doesn't get the love and respect he deserves. So I hope he gets big shine this weekend. I hope that your tickets have the very best of luck, my man, because I do not currently have action on the fight and probably will not add unless Vicente moves to a betting underdog, at which point I would consider getting involved because I capped him about 55% in this spot. But keep in mind, he's one of my favorite fighters in the UFC. That could be complete bias and homerism. And my man Phoenix could be onto something. He could look 60, 65% retrospective, and I could come here with my tail between my legs. Woe is me for my man Vicente Luque. What else you got on this card, my man? We got about 6-7 minutes to wrap this thing up.
Yeah, I got three more bets, 2 more fights. I actually got 2 bets on the Aldo Munoz fight. I definitely think this one is a lot of people on both sides, but I'm gonna favor Pedro Munoz here for 5 reasons. I like his pace and his pressure, his volume, his cardio, and his durability. And those are the things that I think are going to be the biggest factor on this. Be the biggest factor in this fight, right? I get that Aldo is the more technical striker, right? Munoz is insanely hittable. Aldo could rip those hooks to the body, drain the cardio, drain the movement of Pedro, and then look much better. But to me, I just think that if you're gonna build if you're gonna build an archetype to go out there and beat a guy like Jose Aldo, it's gonna be a better version of Pedro Munoz with Pedro Munoz's style, right? Because that's how you beat a guy like Aldo is you want to get in his face, you want to put pressure on him, you want to throw volume. And I think Munoz, he throws much more volume than Jose Aldo. And I think that he's definitely going to be the guy going forward. And I think in the first round, he's going to be getting hit. I think he's going to be getting hit quite a bit. I think that in terms of Pedro's leg kicks, I don't think he's going to have as much success that he did against Jimmy Rivera, due to the fact that Aldo is very good at checking kicks and that Aldo is the leg kick god himself. The original. And I just think that the pace and pressure. I may be alone here, but I just don't think that, especially in his last fight, I wasn't really that impressed with Aldo. I mean, I thought he looked decent in the first round. For sure, he won that first round, but that fight, he was going to lose that fight if he didn't go to that grappling. And albeit smart move by him, backpacked him for 5 minutes, but you're not going to do that against Pedro Munoz. You're not going to sit on his back for 5 minutes. So, albeit we take away that third round, I think Aldo was on his way to losing that fight, right? So, although I do think that Aldo's going to win the first round at a pretty decent-sized margin, decent-sized clip, I just think that as the fight goes on, I think that Pedro is definitely going to take over the fight. I think that he's going to look much better optically to the judges, being the guy going forward, being the guy initiating the action. And especially with Jose Aldo's fight against Marlon Moraes, I mean, I may also be alone here. I thought he won the fight. I thought it wasn't really that far-fetched that he won the fight due to the fact that, yes, Aldo was advancing. He was pressuring him in the third round, but he wasn't throwing. I mean, there was a stretch for like 2 minutes where he literally wasn't throwing anything. I mean, Moraes was jabbing him. I mean, I think the commentators were very biased that Aldo was winning that round. I just don't see how he was winning that round. Yes, he was going forward, but he was getting jabbed up. I mean, he wasn't really throwing any punches, right? So his volume isn't there. Even though he's going to land some pretty decent strikes and he's the more technical striker than Pedro Munoz, Munoz is going to be throwing more. Munoz is durable. I know he's there to be hit. I know he's going to get hit. I'm going to bank on his durability till I can't bank on it anymore. I think that Aldo, if anyone's going to put out Munoz, Aldo's a very good potential guy to put him out. But Munoz has the better cardio. I mean, I have seen him start to slow down, but his cardio is better than Aldo's. And again, he's just going to be the one walking forward. That pace and pressure is so hard to deal with. And I just think that Jose Aldo, I mean, once Marlon Vera started walking forward in the second round and was putting it on him, I mean, it was kind of, Aldo really wasn't looking that good anymore. In the fight against Yan, yes, he looked great. But again, Yan is a slow starter, right? Yan is a slow starter, and then he takes over late in the fight. Munoz gets going right from the beginning of the fight. And I just think that all those 3 fights at bantamweight really haven't been, again, albeit he did look good against Yan until Yan took over. But again, I do think it's because Yan started off the fight slower. I mean, against Aljamain Sterling, same thing. He started off much slower. Then we extend the fight. He looks much better, much stronger fighter. And I just haven't been, I don't think Aldo's throwing that much volume. Even the fight against Volkanovski, I mean, he landed 29 significant strikes, and all Volkanovski did was basically just dance, throw a jab, and then mix in some wrestling. Right? Aldo really wasn't doing anything. He kind of just accepted that fact. So, albeit, I do think Aldo can win the fight. Again, I capped this one 60-40 in favor of Pedro Munoz. I got a unit and a half on him on like plus, I think it was 115 or something like that. I just think his pace, thank you. I think his pace, his pressure, I think it's going to be too much for Aldo. This is the archetype that you want to send in there when you want to beat a guy like Jose Aldo. You want a guy that's going to get in his face, put a pace on him, put pressure on him, and is durable, that can't get knocked out. He's going to get countered. The first round is going to be very scary. He's going to get countered. He's going to get ripped to the body. I do think if Aldo really works the body in the first round with those hook shots and then slows down Munoz's volume, then that would be very smart of him. But again, I just don't think he throws the volume to beat a guy like Pedro Munoz. I don't think he throws that much. He hasn't shown me that he throws a lot of shots, even against Marlon Vera. Only 44 significant strikes through 2 rounds. I mean, Munoz is going to throw so much more than that. He's just going to throw a lot more than that. And he's going to be in your face. So those are the things that are for the reason I favor Munoz. I get that Aldo is gonna hit him in the first round. But again, I just think the pace, the pressure, the volume, the cardio, the durability, I think that's just going to be enough in this fight. Optically, it's going to look much better. So I like Pedro Munoz here.
I'm with you on the pick, but I didn't go in on the bet. With you on the pick. Okay asked us, Liam, who do you got on the Kenny Yadong fight after face-offs? I'm still going to roll with Casey Kenny, even though he looked a little questionable on the scale. No action on that fight, but that's how I'm leaning. Phoenix, how do you feel?
Yeah, the Kenny Yadong fight. It's for me. That's the only fight on the main card I don't have action. I capped it. I think the line's right. I mean, Kenny 55, Song 45. I just think that Kenny has more ways to connect with his strikes. I feel that Yadong has to get really in close. Uh, albeit Yadong is very fast, very good combos, and he hits harder. But I just think that he has to get close to land his punches. He's not. Kenny's a much better distance striker, in my opinion. I think Kenny throws more volume. Kenny can always mix in the wrestling. We've seen that Yadong's been taken down multiple times in his fights. So I just think that Kenny should be slightly favored, but it's going to be a close fight. And again, with the judges, I don't really want to lay that. And again, and I just think that someone could be finished. I mean, both guys are super durable, but it's going to be a war. So yeah, that's my thoughts on the fight. I think the line's pretty accurate, but yeah.
Awesome. Rapid fire on the way out here because we got about 2 minutes left. I wanted to ask, what was your full action on the Aldo Munoz fight? And then what, if anything, do you have on that main event?
I played Pedro Munoz 1.5 units plus 115, I think it is. And then I played also 0.5 units on Munoz by decision at plus 250, I think, just because I think that line's off. I think Munoz probably wins the decision more likely than not. And if I'm capping him 60-40, getting a decision line at plus 240 just seems wide to me. So I just put a half unit on that just to up the value. If he knocks him out, I'll be perfectly fine with it. But, although I get he's been knocked out in 4 of his losses, but, those are like ground and pound more. Like, he's only been flatlined by McGregor, and, he's been used to getting hit by featherweights, and Munoz isn't really a knockout artist himself. So just a
little bit.
Yeah. I mean, he's only got 5 knockouts on his thing though. So he's not, he's not like, if he hits you, you're not going to melt. And I think all those taken shots from bigger 45ers, I don't think Munoz puts him out, but he could.
Sure.
Or
I honestly think that the real finishing upside there for Munoz would be a guillotine if Aldo starts panic wrestling when he gets tired, or if he gets hurt and then wrestles as a result, because Pedro's just so mean from that position. But do you got anything on the main event there, Phoenix?
I do. Last play. I have
nice.
I have Gane inside the distance at plus 105. I mean, I really do like that spot. I think it's actually a pretty sharp spot, just due to the fact that the under is juiced to minus 180, and I've seen that a lot of people are actually.
You mean minus 200?
Minus 200. So I just don't see how Derrick. I get he has that power, but it's kind of the same thing as the Uriah Hall Sean Strickland last night, right? It was kind of that if Uriah Hall lands that bomb, that it's over. The thing with this fight is, Derrick Lewis is great at finding that knockout. But one, I think Gane has a chin. I don't think it's like if you hit him, he's automatically going out cold, albeit he's not getting hit by Derrick Lewis. But what I mean by that is, if I don't think Derrick Lewis, one significant strike KO. I think he can probably eat some. And I just think that Gane is so defensively sound. I mean, he can be hit, but I just think that he's very defensively sound, that he'll avoid that. And I just think it's hard to imagine that he doesn't finish. I think that this line is, I think getting him at plus money inside the distance is solid, due to the fact that I think there's a lot of recency bias that Gane's a guy that wins decisions mainly. But albeit that's against Jairzinho Rozenstruik, who is much more durable than Derrick Lewis, who's gone the full 25 minutes before. And against Alexander Volkov, who, he's also a pretty durable fighter as well in that regard. But I just think that Gane's ability to work the body, Derrick Lewis is clearly not a durable fighter to the body. Derrick Lewis has been finished in all of his UFC losses. I don't think Derrick Lewis can go 25 minutes getting pieced up. He seems like the guy that once we get into those championship rounds and he's tired.
I don't know that he can go 25 minutes, period.
Yeah, honestly.
That Mark Hunt fight, he kind of
he just gave up.
Lost it a little bit. And
yeah. And that's my angle. I just think that, Derrick Lewis isn't the guy that's going to get pieced up in his hometown for 25 minutes. I mean, once we get to those championship rounds, he's tired. His body is sore. He knows he's losing. He might just go for it. And I think that's when he walks into a counter of Cyril Gane. And I think once Lewis realizes, okay, this isn't going well, that he's probably going to quit and Gane's going to get the finish. I think there's a good spot for Gane to get a finish against a guy who doesn't have the cardio, who doesn't have the durability in his body, who doesn't have the will really to go and hasn't been 25 minutes. I think Gane inside the distance is pretty solid. Not to mention he could even go for a takedown. I think he gets takedowns much safer than Curtis Blades does, so he's not going to walk into an uppercut. And I think once it hits the ground, I think Gane can get a submission there too. So I think Gane inside the distance at plus money is pretty solid for a guy that's capped minus 400, getting a plus number there.
I agree with you, man. As Derrick Lewis says, he loves wrestlers. And I don't think he has a wrestler in front of him. I think he has somebody who's going to be poised, confident, ready, willing, and able to strike with him, and not afraid to do so. I think Cyril Gane probably has the chin to survive this matchup. I also think that he will have the pace, the pressure, the length, the ability to keep Derrick Lewis at range for the most part. And I think that Cyril Gane is something special. I think he's a very talented guy. I think that his metrics are off the charts, especially for a heavyweight. So I can't say I've gotten involved yet on that play, but I've certainly been looking at it. I've kept my eye on it all week. It's hard to put your money in front of Derrick Lewis, but it's also something where, I think Cyril Gane is the truth. I bet him last time against my man Volkov, who I really have been making a lot of money backing historically. And I was so confident when I did the tape that Cyril Gane was going to piece him up and was going to make him look bad at range, which he really did. And I think Volkov's a better striker than Derrick Lewis. I think that loss was a bit of an anomaly. So I think that Cyril Gane is clearly the side here. As his line starts to come back down a little bit to that minus 355 space, I'm not saying I'm getting involved, but if it continues to contract a little bit, I would consider parlaying that because I do think that he should probably be about 80% implied here. But I think it's a heck of a dang fight. And there's a reason that they run out these heavyweight main events because there's always that element of uncertainty. So I'm really excited about this card. I got to get out of here, guys, but I appreciate my man Phoenix coming in, dropping some knowledge. I wish him and you the very best of luck on all of the bets that you're taking this weekend. Real quick, before we hop off, I want to kick it to my man Phoenix. Where can the people find you?
Just Twitter, Phoenix_MMA, and YouTube, Phoenix_MMA. So yeah, thanks for having me on. It was a lot of fun talking. Glad to see we got some of the same plays. Yeah, sounds good. Thanks
Absolutely.
for having
me on. We got okay saying good luck in the chat. Appreciate you. Appreciate everybody who rolled with us, everybody who stopped by, everybody who dropped something in the chat. Always appreciate you guys. It is all of us, me, Phoenix, you guys, the good guys versus these bookies each and every week. Let's hope that we're able to take some shekels back off them this weekend. And I'm feeling good about our chances. UFC 265, win, lose, or draw on these bets. It's going to be a heck of a dang card. All of us fight fans are in for a treat. So I hope that all of you guys enjoy these fights. God bless and good luck to each and every one of you, and enjoy these fights. Until next time, Liam Picks Fights every Thursday. Make sure you check it out, and you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, everywhere at Liam Picks Fights. Thank you all so much. Like this video and subscribe on the way out if you haven't already. Peace and love. We'll see you next time.